Not buying much of anything here today. Going up, I mean, it's skyrocketed. So a $600 pension 10, 15 years ago won't buy much of anything here today.
And why the millennial generation is starting to give up because they can't afford to get a good job or own a house.
A million Venezuelans voting for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3 units, and people are going to start rioting in the streets.
Was reported to have asked Putin for military support that would help him stay in power.
We will make America safe again, and yes, together we will make America great again.
And 8 more years goes by until Bernie himself finally visits stay out of the Ponzi scheme.
Because it's dominant, I mean, it can use the alliance for its own ends.
Since 1981, bond yields, also known as coupon rates, have just gone down and down and down.
The Reserve note will be your biggest financial liability.
Okay, we are live. RTD Live Talk. Gotta give my screen a second to pop up there. Excited to have a good chat tonight with Susan Boskey, my guest on RTD Live Talk. And so once I can see myself, I can then begin just the wonders of technology. Every now and then it works correctly, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm still waiting to see myself. There I go. Okay, so welcome to RTD Live Talk this Thursday night. It is the 21st day of the month of June, and it's the first day of summer. And so I'm excited because here in Michigan, the weather's been hit or miss as far as whether it's going to rain one day or be cold or windy. So now we got some sun, so it's good. And so as always, we are going to have a nice discussion night. So the phone line, if you want to call in and ask a question at any time during the conversation, feel free to do so. It's 833-RLIVE-RTD. So I want to begin by introducing my guest today, Susan Boskey. She reached out to me originally about a month ago, so we had several conversations, and just some great conversations. She's a wealth of knowledge, and so she actually studied this monetary system and financial matters very extensively years ago, put out a great book that I had a chance to go through, and it was well worth reading. And so I was like, hey, I would love to have you on my show. Love to have your thoughts and experience on this monetary system, and also get your thoughts on where we're going. So, Susan, I'm going to put you on the camera right now. So here you are, you're up now. So share with those that may not know who you are. Who is Susan Boskey? How did you arrive at your revelation knowledge in regards to our monetary system? And so just lay it on us as to some things that we might know to get to know you better.
Okay, thank you, Mike. It's lovely to be here. Well, first of all, I just want to apologize for my curtain in the back. It was just so bright that I had to put something up so that there was more visibility. So I'm happy to be on the show. And yeah, I'm the older generation, and I started learning about the monetary system back in the 1980s. And it was largely as a result of working with Buckminster Fuller, which I know Mike didn't know who he was, but he's an inventor, a kind of Renaissance man who was on the cover of Time magazine back, I believe it was in the 1980s. And he created the geodesic dome and the Dymaxion car, and was an inventor of many different things. And he wrote a book called Critical Path, which was my first exposure. It was written in 1981. And he talked about the international bankers. And that's when I first began to get a clue about the banking system in terms of it being overriding all other systems in the country, in the world, it being the core system, if you will, that controlled everything. So all my study has been independent. I have found different teachers over the years, and my latest teachers had been actually in Colorado with a registered investment advisor and her husband, who is a historian. And I spent 4 years studying with them and developing a whole program based on understanding the hidden risk of the monetary system, the economic system itself in people's lives, and creating a sequential system to help people who are willing to step up, make the effort to move forward and live a quality life in the context of a system that's not likely to change anytime soon. So I'm just an ordinary person, is what I want to say, who's done a lot of study, you know, and really committed myself to learning and sharing the information.
All right. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And so definitely from your studies as well as from your experience and just, you know, just having been around long enough to actually see some things, you know, unfold, I want to start off by basically welcome you to RTD Live Talk. Looking forward to getting into some very deep and interesting questions. And so I often talk about, you know, things that happen because I'm somewhat of a millennial, so I haven't been around long enough to really fully gather enough information other than just researching on my part. But from your standpoint, I would like to get some life experiences before we dive into a lot of the educational things you learned along the way. And so one of the things that I find very interesting is the whole idea of where we're at now with this whole inflation aspect. And a lot of people think that the inflation, we've yet to really reach the true inflation that will be coming. And so the only comparison we have is what happened perhaps in the 70s. And so from your standpoint, back in that time frame there, were you aware of that whole inflation aspect? And what was it like living in that time and just operating when prices are going through the roof and the dollar wasn't a sound currency at that point because everyone's trying to get rid of them? Share with us a little experience from those that are a little bit younger who may not have that experience directly.
Well, I can say that back in the 70s, I really wasn't thinking about this topic, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
I was in my 20s at the time and living my life, and it hadn't really occurred to me. And to be honest, also, I hadn't noticed that it was a rough time. It certainly wasn't economically difficult for me to work, earn a living, and even to rent an apartment in San Francisco by myself. You know, things seemed doable. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough. And so I know I remember I asked my mother a couple questions. And so from her experience, she shared a couple stories about, she just mentioned gas prices. And so she's like, son, compared to what was going on now, gas prices, you guys have it good compared to how it was back then. Because she was also in her early 20s as well. And so her experience, she gave me some stories that kind of sound like some nightmares for her. So that's why I thought I would ask that question and see. So watch this. So we're live tonight with Susan Boskey. And so she actually wrote a book that I want to make sure we cover. And it's called The Financial Wellness, the Quality Life Plan.
No, it's called The Quality Life Plan.
Quality Life Plan, right. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at your website now. So it's called The Quality Life Plan. And so within that book there, you share a couple things in regards to what led to the current situation we're in now and some practical things that people can do to really gain some footing in this environment. And so let's touch on a little bit of things as to why and what made you decide to write the book, and share with us some things that may not be so, or everything's pretty much common sense, but share with us some things that might not be too practical nowadays.
Okay, well, what led me to write the book is that I've always been interested in, you know, why things seemed so difficult for so many people. Once I got a little older, I started to see that the majority of people, even though they were hardworking and took care of their families, it wasn't easy. You know, there was a lot of struggle, even back in the 80s, as I got started with learning all this. And so I wanted to understand why. And the answer for me led me to the monetary system as the core reason why. It wasn't just because people, the rents were too high or people weren't getting paid enough, or there was the cost of living was too high. It was that, okay, what's underneath all that? That's what I wanted to know. And what was underneath all that is learning about the mechanics of the financial system, which is global. And so I wrote the book because I thought, wow, if more people understood this and they had some alternative strategies to what the traditional financial planner will tell you, this could be so amazingly helpful to people.
Yeah.
That's what motivated me.
Right. Now, so let me ask you a question. Uh-oh. Got a little feedback. I'm hearing myself. So, okay, so let me ask you a question. So in regards to the conventional advice, the financial advice that's being given now, one thing I often mention is the fact that once the whole Great Recession, it came and gone, the financial advice stayed the same, from all the financial experts, but yet our monetary system has changed drastically because we are now in what I call unprecedented monetary times, where there are some negative interest rates, zero interest rates. There's a push to go cashless. There's an increase in consumer debt, national debt, corporate debt, and to the point where there's something brewing that's about to give pretty soon. But the financial advice of save here, put a little something aside here, and this and that. The typical allocations have not changed. Share with us your thoughts on that outdated financial advice, in my opinion, in comparison to what is more ideal given the circumstances we're in now, because everyone knows that something's not right. But then how would you tell someone what, where, how to begin doing something uniquely different than what you might hear from a mainstream financial advisor per se? Even though we can't give financial advice, we can share opinions though. So share with us some opinions that will be good worth noting.
Well, you know, financial advisors do give some good advice.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that they leave out an incredibly significant factor, a risk factor, because they're always talking about risk factors. One of the foundational risk factors, which is the way the monetary system works. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't have that integrated into your financial plan as to how you view money, you view spending, earning, saving, and investing, then you're just always dealing with a hole in your bucket because you haven't gotten all the information. Yeah. So I don't disparage the financial planners. I think they do a great job with what they know, but they're not trained to understand the monetary system, and it plays in a significant role in the value that people have and the way they live their life. You know, it's the foundation, really. So that's what I would say to people, and they'd say, well, what should I do? My first comment is you need to get more information about how money works. And when you have that as your foundation, you'll see that you have to then apply different strategies in order to mitigate that impact, which is going to happen and is happening today. And I just saw an article today that said Americans have $1 trillion in debt right now. And
I wonder, was that credit card debt? Was that mortgage debt?
No, credit card.
Credit card. Okay.
Yeah. And then there's another really significant article I was reviewing again today, which was saying that 51 million Americans say that they cannot provide the basics for their family of housing, food, transportation, and that's 43% of Americans. So we hear that this economy is booming, everything is great, better than ever. But really, a lot of it is based on the fact that ever since the Great Recession, the Federal Reserve determined to do something called QE, mm-hmm. which I'm sure you're familiar with, Mike, which is buying bonds. It's basically buying up assets. It was doing all these things to expand the money in the system. But mm-hmm. as a result of doing that, that also lowered its value. Like today, a dollar is worth about 2 cents. And that's not my opinion. You can go on anyone can go on the Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI calculator and put in $20 in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created, and then see what that would be today. Or I think what I put in is I put in $1 in 1913, and today it's about $23.
Yeah. Now, one of the things you mentioned is that, you know, I often mention that on the whole show of Rethinking the Dollar is just becoming more aware of just practical monetary matters, dealing with our coinage in general. And so for those that are aware, the viewers watching us now, they're aware of it. But it's those that are not watching us, the ones that I'm trying to get to, the ones that you're trying to get to as well, to wake up, is the understanding that there's a difference between fiat currency and sound money. So I think a lot of people use the word money because all we know is the Federal Reserve notes, aka the dollar, as our primary medium of exchange because it's our national currency. And so as you hinted at, you know, the purchasing power graph, how a Federal Reserve note is only worth
Yes.
2 cents of what it was when the
Exactly.
Federal Reserve first started after 105 years now. And so a big part of the whole educational process, I believe, is the idea of understanding the difference between a fiat currency solely and the importance of sound money from a historical standpoint. And I found that once people understand that there's a distinction between the two, it's easier to have a more open conversation, because they can say, okay, you know what a dollar is. That's probably what you have in your bank account, and where everything your life evolves around is a Federal Reserve note. But on the other end, you have a sound money, a silver dollar, or a gold eagle, or something like that. Those are the other forms of money, in the forms of sound money, that people are really starting to be like, oh, I didn't know. So I'm like, yeah, imagine what else you didn't know. And so I want to comment on one of the things you mentioned about, having a hole in your bucket. I like that reference there, because of monetary policy now, in regards to what the financial advice is being given, there's a hole in the bucket. So can you elaborate a little bit on that more, about the hole in your bucket aspect? Because people are still putting fiat currency into that bucket, thinking it's accumulating up top, but it's dripping at the bottom. So shine a little light for us on a hole in the bucket topic there.
Well, what I mean by the hole in the bucket is that you're doing all these, even the people who are the most disciplined, who follow what their financial planner tells them to do, they're doing everything on top of not understanding that wealth is being extracted from them by the system itself. And that has to do with the design of the issue of money. As you and I know, we're probably not going to get into the fractional reserve banking system, but because of that, people need an entirely different strategy, and the goal being is to become financially stable in the present. The point being that money today is worth less than it was yesterday. That I'm not talking about sound money. I'm talking, again, Federal Reserve notes is worth less right now than it was yesterday. Yeah. And so because of that, people need to learn how to think differently, how to think about the way they earn, spend, save, and invest. And it creates a completely different paradigm of thought process and then behavior. So what I've done is created a flow, if you will, about what you do first, next. And it's not a silver bullet, it's work, it's a focus, and it's possible. And I've had many clients who have really appreciated getting their money, in their case, out of the stock market and doing reallocating it in different ways that were going to help them generate additional cash flow, because cash flow is the name of the game when you have a hole in the bucket in the monetary system.
Wow. Right. I like that, cash flow. Yeah, because it helps you, as you mentioned earlier, live in the present. If you're able to generate and actually have as I think it's Robert Kiyosaki, you mentioned about having your cash work for you type of thing. And so let's talk about one of the concepts there, because you mentioned and referenced the idea of, I think you said, get your money out of the stock market. So I imagine is that one of the ideal things of not investing in your conventional stock market bonds type of things, or what? What are your thoughts on just some steps type of thing of what people can?
Well, first of all, I never tell my clients what to do. I lay out their options. You could do this with now that we see everything, because first we do an assessment of where they are, and understanding their goals. You could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this. I had this one client call me up and she said, "Oh, I'm so relieved." I said, "What?" She said, "Well, it's what you told me." I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, I took my money out, and not everybody's going to do this. And like I said, I don't tell them what to do. I took my money out of the stock market." And in her case, what she did is, let's see if I can remember exactly what she did. She paid off her mortgage, and she paid down she paid the mortgage on one of her adult child's homes, and they agreed to pay her back in a cash flow way on a regular basis. So as a retiree, it gave her an additional cash flow. It got her child out of a mortgage, and then she was just helping her mother, essentially.
Yeah.
So my strategies are really kind of off the grid, and they're about people being able to help each other and have strategies that give them cash flow. That's the whole idea, increasing cash flow, because the loss of wealth is exponential based on the design of the system. That means you have to keep earning more.
Right. The loss of wealth is exponential. I like that. And so we're live now. So I have my guest here, Susan Boskey, here joining us, sharing her thoughts and wisdom. And so we have a couple people watching in, tuning in now. So as always, the phone lines are open. I would love to have some people either chime in via chat with a few questions, or call in and share what's on your mind in regards to this whole monetary system. Perhaps we can go back and forth a little bit about it. So you're more than welcome to ask a question. I would love to just throw some questions at Susan right quick, since we have her on here. And so, Susan, I want to transition a little bit into, because when I sent out information earlier, I mentioned that we'll be talking tonight, I referenced that you are a financial as well as a physical wellness professional. And so on the physical side of things, I know one of the things at your website there, and so I put your link below this video description for those that might want to go check it out. But you hint at the herbal usage of cannabis and whatnot, and that whole industry, which I don't really know much about, other than some of my past guests mentioning how, because I think Canada now legalized marijuana and all the stuff happening in our country, it's becoming a primary subject. So I want to find out what your thoughts on it. What is there cash flow opportunities that you're aware of off of that, and share with us a little bit on the whole cannabis aspect from education that you've gathered.
Sure. Just a step back from that is because my book being really about wanting to help people create a financial foundation so that they could have less stress and a better quality of life. I have also studied and trained from the Holistic Cannabis Academy, graduated recently, because I understand cannabis, for one thing, used therapeutically, I'm not talking recreationally at all right now, can really help people to get their head screwed on straight in terms of stress, anxiety, and even depression. And these seem to be some of the symptoms of the monetary system, actually, that we're seeing with people, because debt is the new slavery, and people are going deeper and deeper in debt, and behind closed doors, they suffer. Out in public, you may never know it, but it's a big issue. And so there's a lot of depression, anxiety over these things. And so cannabis used therapeutically can help people to kind of get their head out of the fishbowl, if you will, and see what they have to do, see what they need to do, get proactive again, instead of just being lost in something. So that's what I'm doing as a coach, as a lifestyle and cannabis coach. But as an industry, I think has great financial potential. Like I said, I'm not in the recreational side of it, but largely, it's an amazing plant. And there's a series right now, a docu-series that's called The Sacred Plant, that if anyone wants to, that's free, 7 series that just talks about the amazing things that are happening in people's health, children with epilepsy, people, certain kinds of cancers, I'm not prescribing anything, but I'm just listening and watching and learning and reading a lot of medical peer-reviewed studies in PubMed that are evidence-based about what it's doing for people. It's the discovery of the system in the body that interacts with cannabis is very recent. So I think that's why there's so much excitement about it.
Yeah. Now, from somebody commented here that cannabis, based upon all the benefits behind it, recreational as well as medical, as well as all the manufacturing things that probably can come from it, that the comment was that perhaps cannabis, if they legalize and allow it to do what it's capable of doing as far as revitalizing some of our economy, do you think that the cannabis sales and developments from it, and it just being implemented in different ways of combating issues, could be a little bit of a lifesaver, or extend our economy a little bit more if it generates, you know, some revenue and some cash flow and things like that? And what are your thoughts on cannabis becoming more mainstream and helping out our economy? Could it help our situation at all, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, because of the state I'm in, which is Washington State, I do go to these meetings of the Cannabis Alliance for this state. And what I've learned is that the main money that's being made is by the state, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
The producers on all different levels of the industry, they're making some money, but it's not, according to them, it's not what people are promoting as being, you know, oh, you know, just overwhelming amounts of money you can make. It's really like there's a 37% tax here in this state. So go figure, you know.
37% on what, like purchasing it from
sales tax. You go into a dispensary. It's built into the price, but yeah, it's 37%. In Colorado, it's only 15%. So you see who's making the money.
Man, yeah, that's a hell of a tax right there. But you know,
I know.
But they're taxing heavily, so hopefully that helps stave off some of the issues the state is dealing with. I'm sure, because I think I did a video there about no, I think it was Oregon, but the pension system there, and just some of the municipality type of issues there on just the lack of funding. So hopefully that goes to some good use there. But I'm sure politicians will find a way to squander those excess funds. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I know. It's the reality behind the hype.
Yeah. Now, someone mentioned that, you know, big pharma or pharmaceutical companies clearly are not in favor of cannabis usage in a recreational or a medicinal standpoint because it's going to mess with their profits, I'm assuming. So have there been any talks or any backlash from pharmaceuticals not wanting to, because I'm sure they're pushing to not legalize and to not allow it to reach the market to discover all these possible cures and help that it could benefit people with? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, there are already two different pharmaceuticals that I'm aware of. One's called Sativex and the other's called Marinol. I'm not sure if they're in the United States or just in Europe. The other part of it is that the U.S. government holds a patent on CBD.
Really?
Yeah. So they already know that it's a neuroprotective, you know, protects the brain against, especially after injury or just in general, because that's what it does. I've read not the entire patent, but anybody can go online and look up U.S. cannabis patent. I forget the number of it, but yeah, that was in the 1990s, I believe, when they got that patent. So so the government itself knows that there's value, and so it's a bit hypocritical in the way that they're dealing with the issue federally. So I think I lost the thread of your question.
No. So yeah, the question was just, you know, will the big pharmaceutical companies eventually end up regretting allowing this whole topic of cannabis being legalized, and the impact it might have as far as cutting some of their funds and their cash flow? How will it be received on their end, is a question.
Oh, well, yes, there is that, but also they're trying to just continue to isolate different compounds out of the plant and produce their own pharmaceuticals, hoping that those will be the ones that people will want because they're the credible people, you know, they're the credible industry, so to speak. So I think there's both of those things. I think they're concerned that people aren't going to buy their pharmaceuticals, and they're going to try to create a better mousetrap themselves.
Wow. So yeah, for those that are just tuning in, I'm here with Susan Boskey, my guest for today. She's actually educating us on financial as well as physical wellness, and we're just talking about cannabis and whatnot. So I want to touch back on the monetary system a little bit, because there's a question here. Someone mentioned about do you think that cannabis can, let me see what's the question. I forgot. Do you think cannabis will thrive during a crash or post-crash type of situation, as far as it being some type of way of getting the economy boosted back up? Because people, of course, if things does crash, there's gonna be a lot of people that's depressed, sad. There's gonna be a lot of bad, negative issues. Do you see cannabis being some type of way of helping people through or after, and it being a boost to our economy at that point?
Well, of course, it's all hypothetical, what speculation, what I'm going to say, but I think it would help people health-wise, mentally and physically. But as far as the economy, I guess it depends. I mean, there's always going to be the illicit growers who are going to be able to produce it and get it out there anyway. And legally, I don't know how much they'll be hurt. You know, I guess it depends on each individual company or grower's financial profile as to whether they can continue and advance their products into the marketplace.
Right, fair enough. Now, one thing that just crossed my mind that I completely forgot in regards to this whole conversation on marijuana is someone mentioned here they're a resident of Canada, and they mentioned that, you know, even though Canada is legalizing marijuana or whatnot, you still can't really smoke it. I'm assuming recreationally because of drug testing. And so, how do you think, you know, from a work standpoint, if you are able in your area to do it recreationally, that's a good word, yeah. Well, how does that work with employment? I'm not sure. Have you come across any information on that for states that where it's legal, like Colorado, for example? Can you just go willy-nilly and smoke all you want and still be able to, you know, function on the job and not have to be, you know, succumb to drug tests and things like that? How does all that work? Are you familiar with that?
Well, I don't think it's standardized, first of all. I think it's company by company. And there are, I haven't studied it in depth, but there are different strategies that people employ to get it out of their system quickly because it tends to show up for a month at least, and maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, in a drug test, even CBD could possibly show up in a drug test. It's not 100% certain that it won't.
Now, interesting. So yeah, when it comes to the CBD oil, I myself just was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, my wife, you know, purchased some, and so she wanted me to be the test dummy. Yeah, so I do the little squirt bottles or whatnot. And so other than just hearing the health benefits behind it, not really sure about what to expect other than the fact that I'm going to try something out. And it's been promoted as that it doesn't show up in your bloodstream in a high concentration level the way you would show positive on a drug test. So that's going to be a big issue I'm sure a lot of people are going to be faced with in the days ahead if it comes to the whole drug test and if you're doing it recreationally, legally, and all that stuff like that. So that's going to be interesting to see. But I want to talk a little bit about the economy just to get your thoughts on, based upon your information, where this is all heading. Do you see a time where we perhaps, because as someone mentioned a while ago about a cashless society, do you think that is still going to be an option, give or take, this next recession or crash, some of the monetary policies that result from that? Could we go cashless? And also, I would love to get your thoughts on cryptocurrency as well.
Okay, well, again, this is all speculation, but I would say that as far as the cashless aspect, I think that's what the banks would prefer. And I think that's what businesses would prefer because it's much easier to track. Yeah. So personally, you know, I'm very much a fan of cash, even though it's fiat currency, because there's privacy with it. You can still make private transactions without, you know, and I don't mean illegal transactions. I just mean you earned it, you have it, it's your business. So, so I just think that that it's likely that they're going to push cashless, and I think crypto is part of that. You know.
Yeah. Now, from a crypto standpoint, is that something that do you think a lot of, like, you know, of course, the younger generation, like the techie type people, those that are real computer savvy are the ones that caught onto it first. So those are the ones that label, you know, the Bitcoin millionaires and all that type of stuff. And so what are your thoughts on the idea that everything is being positioned now for major, you know, insurance companies and whatnot, as well as the banking sector to get involved with the idea of being able to now put some of the retirees' pension funds and things of that nature into that sector for profit's sake, What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's going to be a good idea, or you think that's going to be some problems, or what are your thoughts on that? Of course, just your opinion, of course.
Sure. It reminds me of back when George W. Bush was in office, and he was talking about putting some of the pension, some of the money for Social Security into the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't go, as far as I know. And so cryptocurrency to me is a gamble in the same way. It's very new, and it's been hacked quite a bit. So all I can say is I'm sure they're thinking of those things because of, again, tracking and actually hoping that it generates more money for retirees, but
Yeah.
I think it's very speculative still.
Yeah. One thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I at some point I'd like to just be able to tell people more about the sequence that I see if they want to go more low tech and just with what they have to get out of the rat race, essentially, of just spinning their wheels and being on the hamster wheel and never getting anywhere, with and having to go more into debt to do it.
Yeah, debt. Like I like how you said, debt is slavery. And so I talk, a lot of things I talk about on this channel here is recession. I use the word recession a lot because I believe that the economic downturn is going to be a monetary restructuring that's going to shake up everything that we've known to be sound. I ideally hinted on the fact that every nation around us is formulating their own monetary system and economy outside of the Federal Reserve note. So we're going to have to deal with that. But then what more so hits me is the idea that the baby boomer generation are the ones that had a chance of experiencing the Industrial Revolution that paved the way for the comfortable lifestyle we're living now. But I also believe that that's going to come to an end or won't really be able to be seen through the way it was promised. So I talk about the pension crisis a lot. And so not only are a lot of states and whatnot underfunded with their pensions and whatnot. So what are your thoughts on just the retirement concept moving forward and the baby boomer generation? Is that something that, that you're aware of, and that the people, is it something that really concerns you as far as it being something that will be affected by this next recession, economic downturn, or whatever people want to use? Is that something that you think about, or because of your strategies outside of the conventional financial knowledge, are you excited a little bit or comfortable with the idea that things are going to change in that regards?
Well, yeah, I think that what you're saying is very true about the restructuring of the entire system. Now, I don't know if you saw the article recently, but I think the government came out and said that the Social Security will be bankrupt in 8 years. Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah. And so I've heard that people like, I think just, I've talked to a lot of guys here, and a lot of people mention the idea that, I was hearing that the Social Security is going to be bankrupt back in the 70s and 80s and stuff. So apparently that jargon has been used a lot, but according to the numbers, it might be a little bit closer than what we all thought. So until it actually happens, I think it's going to be that same case of, it'll never happen. And then also keep in mind that Alan Greenspan said that, no matter what, the U.S. can always print money. So you're going to get what you were promised. It's just a matter of what will it purchase. So
exactly. That's so true. So so along those lines, because the loss of purchasing power is exponential, and what I mean by that is it's a reflection of the compound interest that's in the system, and that equals the loss of purchasing power, and it grows like a snowball. That's the analogy I like to use, going down a hill.
Yeah.
And so that means for your generation, it's really critical for people to think about having additional cash flows, more than one, and being out of debt, because there's the cost of living has, I don't know how it is in Detroit. I do have a good friend there, and I know it's a little more affordable than where I am. But here, right now, there was something on the news that said just to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in this county where I live, you have to earn $20 an hour.
Yeah. I saw it was actually, I think I did a news story. I think it was last week where I referenced an article, could have been the same article, where
probably
it listed the cities, the cost of living in major metropolitan cities. And of course, the Midwest and down south was the cheapest. I want to say Mississippi, Alabama is like, $10 to $15. Up here in my area is 15 to 18. And then New York was like 25, 30. Out West California, 30. And so clearly, on the West Coast, East Coast is expensive. So your best bet is move inland or go down south for now. But I'm sure there's no avoiding what's coming overall. So I think everyone's gonna be impacted by it. So yeah, that's sad.
Yes. Yeah. So just a 2-bedroom apartment in this county, as people have to earn $20 an hour full time.
Yeah, and so the idea that we have all those unemployment numbers, we're at 3.8%, not even including the 100,000 not in the workforce. Then you got those what I consider bogus Bureau of Labor Statistics of data anyway. So just the idea that there's people who are working hard, but in this new economy we're in, most people have part-time jobs or working under 30 hours anyway because of the whole healthcare insurance situation that I believe is unraveling now. I'm not even sure about it, because I know Trump initially did he rescinded all the executive orders for insurance, but I'm not sure if it took an effect yet. But I know my insurance went up pretty, not as high as a lot of people, thank God. But so I'm sure people are feeling the pinch one way or another. So it's unfortunate. It's not going to get any better anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, so as we draw towards the end of our conversation, Susan, it's been great to have you on. I enjoyed the opportunity to speak with you directly. Now, let's talk about some practical steps.
Okay.
And so a part of the whole financial wellness and just as you referenced, generating cash flow for the younger generation, especially those that are in their prime working ages, give us a couple guiding steps. And of course, to find out more, it'd be worthwhile to read your book on the matter, but just give us something to get started on being able to generate cash flow. Give us Dave Ramsey has a baby steps. Step 1 is this, step 2, step 3, step whatever. Give us, 1 or 2 steps to get our juices flowing and get us excited give us some hope for the days ahead, even though we know everything is happening around us.
Okay, there's steps before what I'm going to say, and you can find it in my book. The website is thequalitylifeplan.com. If you're interested in reading my blogs or seeing,
I'll link it down below so people can grab a copy there.
But as far as like things to do, is really, again, you want to stabilize in the present, and what that means is do your best to live within your means. And I know that sounds very old-fashioned. But the idea is not to be using credit to get further into debt in your lifestyle.
Yeah.
You look at the things in your life that you're currently paying for that you might be able to do without. Look at the things that and then replace them with the things that you really need in your life that you're maybe not paying for because you're doing something more extravagant than really, which it inhibits you being able to do maybe some health things that you really should be doing with your money.
Right. Now, one thing with that, I like the idea of doing what's most important in your life. But one of the issues that I know for a fact in my generation, because I was not too long ago having a conversation about this, it's just the lack of awareness of our priorities, because we're bombarded with so much information as well as just opportunities to accumulate stuff. And so being a younger person, I would imagine that people can hear that practical step you mentioned there, but be bombarded with just so much stuff pulling at us these days. Is there anything that you might want to share with us in regards to how to hone in on our priorities first to be able to make the more sound decisions based upon based upon some of these steps?
Well, that would be setting your goals. Not only your financial goals, but your life goals, and let those drive what you do. And that will then mean that maybe you need to sell the boat. I call it reallocation of assets.
Okay.
So you may have toys, of different kinds, but you really want to get your you really have a goal to live in a certain place and have a certain home, and these things are in your way of doing it because you have to maintain them. Either you have to maintain them or you have to make payments on them,
Yeah.
or they're just sitting around doing nothing for you. So it's reallocate. I have a much more systematic approach than what I'm going over right now.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things. The first things is asset reallocation. Think about, maybe it's just reallocating the money so you can pay off your debt. And then you can start. Because you have to think about your health and your family and the time, because the more people are in debt, the less time they have, the harder they have to work to pay the interest on their debt. So what I want to accomplish is for people to get their life back and have time with the things that are important. And so asset reallocation is one. Smart shopping, buying in bulk, which many people do. Leveraging the monies of the value of money today. And that's a really significant piece, meaning things are going to cost more in the future. Either you're going to get less of it, or it's going to cost you more, one or the other. So if there's something you really need, like a car for work, leverage your money into having it now instead of waiting on that one, because it's going to help you get other things, where you need to go if you need to upgrade your car. So, but let's see, what else would I say? The investing piece that I have is after all of this is done. So a lot of people want to jump to the investing piece first because it's sexy, but really I'm all about people getting a stable foundation, creating a foundation. And that's where the getting out of debt, reevaluating all your expenses, eliminating some, reallocating assets, and having work that you can tolerate at the very least, if not like, and also more than one way to earn money.
Those are some great tips there for people to gain a little traction and to be able to have your feet on solid ground, to be able to stand up straight and actually breathe deep and then work towards something. And so I like those steps, definitely. So that's why I mentioned when I was reading through your book, I was intrigued by some of the methods there, because it's like, okay, I think I knew that, but I'm not sure if I really knew it, but let me find out more. So it was great to get you to share those thoughts with us here. So as always, my guest, Susan Boskey here, she's sharing her wealth of knowledge on financial matters as well as the whole wellness aspect. And so as we draw towards the end of our conversation this evening, I would love to have anybody call in and ask a question directly. That'll be great. And if not, then in the chat questionnaire, any last questions or anything that'd be worth finding out from this wealth of knowledge we have with us here. So Susan, are there anything else that you might want to share with the viewers in regards to just financial or just physical wellness in general? Because you look like you're a pretty fit or in shape young lady yourself. So obviously you look like you might do some working out. So any other tips on just staying youthful and young and vibrant and, really bracing and probably more so learning or figuring out a way to thrive in the days ahead, given all this uncertainty we're facing from a financial and a monetary standpoint? Any other tips or tricks that you might want to share with us to help us continue to move forward and just enjoy life?
Well, yes, learn ways to lower your stress levels.
Yeah.
That's really it, including the practical ways of getting out of debt and to relieve anxiety and depression and stress, and as well as learn how to alleviate your stress and do those things and eat well.
Yeah. Very good point there. Eat well and alleviate stress. So everybody, I appreciate you guys tuning in with us tonight. We've been chatting for a little less than an hour. So so Susan, my typical format is I try to stay within 30, 40 minutes, give or take, but yet have a good time. So, we went beyond the normal time. So thank you for being patient with us and whatnot, because you still have a little bit of time left in your day on the West Coast. So we're drawing towards the end here on the East Coast. So, but thank you for joining us. And so as always, everyone, my guest is Susan Boskey here. So if you click the link below this video here, you'll find out more information on everything she's done, as well as a link to find out more about our book if you're interested directly. And other than that, Susan, it's been great. I just thank you for reaching out to me to be able to join me here and to share this knowledge. So I thank you for your time, energy, and everything else that you do with the community to help educate people and to coach people and to help make a difference. Because I believe one of my messages is that everyone here has a unique angle or perspective that they're meant to share. So I thank you for sharing yours with us tonight.
Thank you, Mike. I'm really delighted to be here.
My pleasure. So everybody, enjoy your evening, and I will see you guys tomorrow night, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, for another RTD Live Talk. And other than that, enjoy the rest of your evening, enjoy the day, and live well, have fun, and stay prayed up is my motto. So Susan, thank you for joining us. You have a good evening as well.
Okay, good night.
All right, bye-bye.